here's what I know. Someone's going to have to start to fight for Nebraska, all right? So I'm here to fight for Nebraska. And finally, the team grows up. It's what people always ask me about year 3. Finally, the team grows up, and they're like, well, I got to go make the play.
It's time to join the Husker Huddle with Nick Handley and Grant Hansen.
And welcome into another Husker Huddle here on another game week. As I'm Nick Handley alongside with Grant Hansen. We appreciate you being with us on a week that we've said now for the third time, a bounce-back week for Nebraska. Actually, this will be the fourth time for Nebraska trying to bounce back. Their third loss, they lose to USC in an atmosphere that was really, Grant, unlike anything that I have seen. We're going to get into all of that. But as we always appreciate you checking out the Husker Huddle, we've got a lot to bring to you today. We're going to be talking to Michael Severe. Always love talking to Michael Severe. That's right. There's so many different titles. Michael Severe of Big Red Rapid. Michael Severe of just everything.
I don't remember what I put last time on the lower third for him. I'll just figure it out.
I like College Football Insider, or more than anything, the Football Insider, because the guy knows his NFL as well. But we'll be talking to Michael today. Also going to have a conversation with, we just have something with the interior linemen for Nebraska. But whether it's Rocco Spindler this week, it's going to be Henry Lutovsky. And
guard to guard.
And it's a group that has really been through it when it comes to the injuries, and obviously a unique perspective on a new quarterback, because that's going to be a big part of this show too, is Nebraska and the TJ Lateef era beginning. We've got mailbag questions, and of course, we will give score predictions, but also want to keep you engaged on how you can continue to follow the Husker Huddle podcast.
Yeah, go ahead and give us a like on our YouTube page here on performancepodcast.com, and go ahead and subscribe to us as well so you don't miss any of our content here. Of course, we have the Husker Huddle, but there are some other things that maybe would pique your interest. And give us a comment, too, if you have thoughts on the show. Of course, if you want to reach out to us directly, you can go ahead and email us at huskerhuddle@myboomerradio.com. That's huskerhuddle@myboomerradio.com. Appreciate you if you can tell a friend or two about the show, and hopefully get them to tune in with us next week as we get ready for a bye-week breakdown with only 2 weeks left in the regular season. If you can believe that, after this week. Spotify and Apple listeners, we appreciate you guys as well. Go ahead and, if you can, rate us and give us a review there. That'll help us out.
We'll be your friend, too. You know, you could tell a friend about it, and then we'll gladly be your friend as well. We're kind people, especially as we're getting closer to the holidays. We got a lot to get to with our Omaha Steaks Prime Cuts. A lot on TJ Lateef, but also this UCLA game is, some of you may remember, this was one of those more disappointing losses from a year ago. We'll get into that. Of course, our Prime Cuts brought to you every week by Omaha Steaks, your go-to for game day. From sizzling steaks to all of your tailgate favorites, they've got you covered. Omaha Steaks, proud partner of Nebraska Athletics. Here are this week's Omaha Steaks Prime Cuts.
I know for me this week, I'm going to do the best job I can for TJ Lateef, because leaders insert themselves in the point of friction and try to take stress off. And I know Sierra Wright, and I know Javen, and I know Deshaun, and I know Rocco and all those guys. Every single person in our organization is going to try to do a little bit more so that TJ Lateef can be successful. And I think we could be like an average team and just go out there and be disappointed, that we lost last week and have a bad week, or we could come together and unite. And so I told our guys, either you're in or you're out, and they've all said that they're in. And I would say that to everybody. It's going to take every single one of us.
It's an extreme motivator. I mean, you got that little itch, you know what I'm saying, on the back of your head. You waiting on that game, because obviously they came in our house and we ended up losing. So, I mean, this is a game that we've been waiting for, and we're ready to go out there and go play.
Obviously, we have some intel with Coach Eck, was there with him and knows him well. But just like I said, I think that he can make all the throws if he knows what the coverage is. He can throw the ball deep to the outside. He can throw the ball deep to the, on the comebacks and the digs. So the intermediate passing game that you see a lot of quarterbacks struggle with, he does a nice job with. And so we're going to have to do a good job, like we have to do every week with a quarterback like that, of muddying the picture pre-snap and making sure that when the ball's snapped, the post-snap coverage looks different than it was pre-snap.
My conversation with TJ is just be yourself. Just be yourself. You just play your game. He's not thrusted into a leadership point of view right now. Dylan's still around. He's still going to be around. He's still going to be a tremendous leader that he is. And, I think Coach Rule's message was spot on with, everybody else needs to elevate, including me. Got to elevate what we're doing and let TJ worry about playing quarterback. Just what's his job. That's all. That's all he needs to worry about. And everybody needs to play, to the best of their ability in order for him to be able to do that.
I mean, it's a lot to take on as a freshman, especially when you don't expect it. We just all rallied behind him, told him we believed in him, and I just try to remind him of that game against Akron at night when he went crazy, because that's the type of player he is. That's what he can do, and this whole program believes in him.
Our weekly Prime Cuts always brought to you by Omaha Steaks. They are your go-to for game day, from sizzling steaks to all of your tailgate favorites, Grant and myself. They've got you covered. Omaha Steaks is a proud partner of Nebraska Athletics. And Grant, I think there's a lot of what we took away from Tuesday's coordinator and player availability, and a lot of that was how this team supports TJ Lateef, but also what we heard from Dana Holgorsen, what we heard from Matt Rule on Monday, what we heard from John Butler is that response. And there was something that Matt Rule had said. It wasn't in the Prime Cuts, but he also talked about this week of being at that crossroads and this team now being in a mindset of how do you want to finish these 3 games. It is crazy to think there's only 3 games left, but what can still be a massive improvement for Nebraska from the last 2 years under Matt Rule. And with some very unique challenges, going out to LA, taking on UCLA, then having that bye week, then going out to State
coast
College.
to coast.
Who knows what that Penn State team is going to be like when Nebraska sees them in a couple of weeks. And then, of course, that showdown with Iowa on Black Friday, who very well could be ranked. The college football playoff rankings came out. Iowa was in the top 20. I mean, they're the 20th ranked team.
You'd consider Iowa ranked at this point, right? If they remain in the top 25 at that point, in the college football top 25, that's a ranked win opportunity.
Yeah. And so what is the mindset of this team? Not only did you have that disappointing, just deflating loss to USC where things were going very well up until that sequence of both Dylan Raiola going down and then Elijah Pritchett going down, but still in the lead, still moving the football. It just doesn't happen for Nebraska. So all of that going into that game, even if Dylan is healthy, you feel deflated. Now you're looking at doing this the rest of the season without Dylan Raiola with that broken fibula. So how does this team support TJ Lateef? Can they rally? Can this have a new spark with a guy that does add an interesting element to this offense?
2 narratives really emerged, I think, from this week's round of press conferences, right? And the first is, okay, how does Nebraska help TJ Lateef? Well, the answer is everybody just performs better than they did a week ago. And I guess that's not really like super creative, but it should make a lot of sense in this sort of situation. It's like
there's a
we
extra
all
sense
have
of
to.
urgency.
We all have to work harder this week to be better for TJ, right? You heard Dana Holgorsen saying we need to make it just basically so that all he has to do is think about playing quarterback, and he shouldn't have to handle any of the leadership responsibilities this week. That'll fall on Dylan Raiola, who won't be traveling with the team out there to Los Angeles, but you've got really experienced guys like Henry Lutovsky on that offensive line, guys that can pull him along, guys like Luke Lindenmeyer, who mentioned, look, you just have to be yourself. And so I am very, very interested to see what he looks like with a full week of prep on the road. It's so crazy how poetic sports can be at times that it just so happens that the week before Nebraska goes to play I'm going to fire from the hip here on this one. Is he from Compton? Am I crazy?
He's Compton, California.
He is 20 minutes away from where he grew up, playing now, starting for Nebraska under the lights against a UCLA team that I'm sure he grew up following and either rooting for. It's so funny to me that it just happens to be that the Dylan Raiola injury happens right before this game.
The homecoming for TJ Lateef.
And so there's a lot out there for him this week, and there's a lot out there for Nebraska again this week in terms of creating a cool college football story, even if it's in the short term. The other narrative that really emerged this week was about respect and how Nebraska can earn respect. And so you think, okay, well, in the wake of the USC loss, you're sitting there at 6-3. You can't make the college football playoff. You can't make the Big Ten championship game. What else is in front of this team? And I think it's pretty clear. I think Matt Rule did a good job of laying that out this week, that the way that you can still earn something this year is the respect of the conference, the respect of the college football ethos, the college football world generally. And if you can get to 8-4 or 9-3, I think you've certainly achieved that, especially doing it with a backup quarterback, because it speaks highly, I think, of all the other pieces that you have around that quarterback. So that's the other thing that's in front of Nebraska over these final 3 games is if you can get 2 out of 3, if you can get all 3, obviously, you can move yourself into a different category, especially as you look forward to next year.
Yeah, and I think for Nebraska, that ranked opponent type thing, you can put that on the back burner at least till the Iowa game. It's obviously a week-to-week type of situation given the current state with this offense, new quarterback. And what is going to, I think, have some interesting elements to this offense that didn't exist before. That's not to say that it's going to be better without Dylan Raiola. I don't like that idea at all. But you brought up
there's no guarantees it's going to be better, but it's going to be different.
No, and it's going to have something else for defenses to prepare for,
right? And
which is never a bad thing.
That's interesting and something that I'm looking forward to asking Michael about here in a second, because yes, there's a lot of talk this week about TJ Lateef and his legs and his mobility and doing things that Dylan couldn't do, and evening things with the quarterback run game and actually adding an extra guy to the picture for the offense that the defense has to defend and making it truly 11 on 11. That's pretty present for UCLA as well with Nico Iamaleava.
Yep.
Because he started to get more involved in the quarterback run game, both designed and scrambles, over the last couple of weeks. So both sides really have that evolving picture for their offense. And, I'd be interested too. Normally, I feel like playing a team off a bye like UCLA, that could be a disadvantage for a team. And I think generally it is. But when it comes to whatever they were looking at and however they were game planning for Nebraska, if they were game planning throughout that week, they probably had to throw a lot of it out on offense just because of the Dylan Raiola injury and start all over again.
And it's interesting of the comfort zone for TJ Lateef, because let's go back to Saturday night. You come in a game that Nebraska's leading and on a drive where Nebraska was moving the football.
Yeah.
A couple missed opportunities. A lot has been made of if he doesn't drop the snap that you had, the Ja'Cory Barney tunnel screen was just, it was a house call. It was right there. And everybody who's had a chance to see that too, you could tell exactly why that's been discussed. But he had to, I know Dana Holgorsen said he was very calm in those moments. I can't imagine the speed of the game and how that must have felt compared to Akron, compared to his other appearance against Houston Christian. Like, I can only imagine how quick
11 a.m. against Houston Christian feels a lot different than under the lights against USC. And you're coming in cold and you haven't,
The pressure, everything about it, the parameters were far different. But the fact that he got to experience that, I think is huge. Now, as you brought up, you're going back home. You're going to a place that's going to have a lot of support. And so as much as this is a road game, all the coaches and all the players talking about having to do better to support TJ Lateef in his first collegiate start. I do think that even you would think going on the road, that's going to be tough. But actually, this is, I think, all of those things within
there's a lot lining up there for him for it to be pretty cool, a cool night for him.
If you have that internal support from your coaches and your players, but then you have that external support from family, familiarity, and it's not like UCLA draws this raucous environment either to the Rose Bowl, that this is probably as good of a situation that you could put TJ Lateef in from those facts.
From a narrative standpoint?
And from those factors.
Certainly.
What can Dana Holgorsen do to support him? The playbook that's going to work for him, what he can do both being effective with his arm, but also his legs. And can this offense stay on the field long enough and put enough points on to get Nebraska back on track? Because not all of this is on TJ Lateef. This is on the defense. You mentioned what UCLA will bring offensively as well. Can the defense do their part? Can the rushing attack with Emmett Johnson? Because I think what is an interesting dynamic in this offense now, and I kind of compare it to a two-man game in basketball. You have a two-man game now between a legitimate threat running the football at quarterback and obviously what Emmett Johnson's doing now, over 1,000 yards on the season. there is a lot of intrigue of when is he going to pull it? RPOs. When is Emmett going to take it? When's TJ going to take it? So there's all of those different elements to this offense.
Well, you almost go back to a Heinrich Hart. I mean, he's smaller than Harburg, and he's got a better arm, I think, than
throws
Harburg.
The ball better, yep.
But perhaps you're in a similar situation to how you would operate the offense. So, you could probably add some new wrinkles in there.
I like that Dana has talked about this a lot, and this is where I do take the offensive coordinator, former head coach in college football's word that anytime you talk about freshmen with that, kind of being a savant of the game and that high football IQ that they're, continuing to learn and they absorb it. It's one thing to learn it, throw the playbook out, say this is what you need, but to be able to absorb it and be able to put it into action. Obviously, we're going to see that now, the real deal on it Saturday, but at least those are things you like to hear because everything we saw when he's gone into games, you can tell he understands the offense. Not like he doesn't look confused out there, even when he bobbled a snap and everything.
He's a playmaker.
Yeah.
You think about the deep throw to Mills, the touchdown run that was called back on the one against Akron. I mean, that later touchdown run he had in that game. Like he's got the ability. Now the question is it too early? Hopefully not.
Yeah.
And how well can Nebraska prepare him? I don't really necessarily get the sense that they're going to massively limit the playbook, but it's going to be different. I mean, you're going to do different things than you did if Dylan's running the offense. And I think there's probably less maneuverability, certainly less maneuverability for the offense pre-snap in terms of changing what you're doing, probably with TJ than you would expect.
Well, and let's mention this real quick too, because good news, Elijah Pritchett was practicing on Tuesday. That is good for this offensive line. But I think we can all agree, and everybody watching and listening to this offensive line is much better at being able to create lanes in run blocking as opposed to pass.
And that's where you need to rely on those three guys in the interior, Lutovsky, Spindler, and Evans.
But some of those pass pro issues,
run behind those guys.
This is where a mobile quarterback can mask some of those issues when it does come to pass pro.
Hopefully.
So you would, exactly.
Because
it's
you
not
don't know
so
how
much
mature
traffic.
his pocket presence, how mature that is, and his sense for that.
But that mobility, though, could help in maybe one occasion where you feel like you're suffocated in the pocket, that you can step up, find a little seam, and take off. We'll see, because I think all of that is going to be very relevant to this matchup.
No doubt.
I want to get to Michael Severe here in a sec, but first I want to tell you about our friends at Omaha Steaks.
Great people.
And we're getting close to the holidays. I'm hearing Christmas music on certain stations and whatnot. So, I mean, it's there. It's top of mind. What better gift, whether it's a family member, whether it's like a work colleague or friend like Grant here, a box of Omaha Steaks. It doesn't have to just be the top choice steaks that are guaranteed. You get a money-back guarantee on these things too, which I don't think you're going to have to use because you're going to like that. But not just the steaks, but you've got chicken, you've got dessert, the apple torte.
Plenty to choose from.
Absolutely. And you can customize things as well. But as we've talked about, whether it's tailgate season or the holiday season, you got to try it yourself. You got to know what we're talking about. When you cut into that and you have that first bite, in fact, we had steaks last night because it was nice out.
Oh.
It's just something that they also do that I really appreciate, on top of the seasoning that comes with it, is you even got your little guide, best practice on how to cook
helpful.
these.
That's really helpful.
How many minutes do you need to be on one side to the other at 450, depending on the cut of the filet? All of those things. Very, very helpful. Omaha Steaks makes it so easy not only to enjoy a top quality steak, but also how to prepare it the right way as well.
Yeah, and don't forget, I mean, it's that grass-fed, grain-finished beef. You've got that excellent marbling. That's where the great flavor comes from. You have the Omaha Steak seasoning. So just top quality products, USD certified tender steaks, juicy burgers. This is a time of the year for comfort meals too, as it starts to get a little bit colder, and you can rely on Omaha Steaks to deliver so in spades. And we've got a great deal for you to get some money off. 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code HUDDLE at checkout. Terms apply. You can see the site for details. Once again, that's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code HUDDLE at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details.
Second appearance on the Husker Huddle podcast for our next guest. That is Michael Severe, host of Big Red Wrap Up. And is it cool, Michael? We've just dubbed you the football insider because I also don't want to just keep it to college football because that would take away from your NFL football IQ as well. But our resident football insider on top of being host of Big Red Wrap Up.
Well, if you call me for anything, I would recommend you calling me about football because I pretty much don't watch anything else at this point in my life. So yeah, I don't even know who won the World Series. I don't watch that stuff. I heard the NBA started. Yeah, we'll get to that in probably January. And same thing's true with college basketball besides Nebraska and Creighton. I'm not really paying attention.
Michael, UNO hockey plays North Dakota. Let's get into that this weekend. No,
That's a great rivalry. I appreciate it. I've been up to the building. It's great. It's wonderful. Yeah. But I haven't. Is UNO good this year, or are you still yelling 2 minutes left and dos minutos?
First of all, no, it's 1 minute.
Okay. Uno momento. Something like that.
They're pretty good. They should be ranked. They're 4-2. They've beaten ranked teams, and then they play another ranked team this weekend. So there you go.
Wow.
See, who would have thought we'd get some UNO hockey talk?
This reminds me when I'm listening to the Bears podcast. He starts talking about soccer. Yeah.
Sometimes you need a distraction, but it's been anything but a distraction this week when it comes to Nebraska getting ready for UCLA because all eyes are on the TJ Lateef era that started obviously a lot earlier than any of us would have thought at Nebraska, but here we are with that injury to Dylan Raiola. He's out for the season. So getting right to it, what you've seen from TJ Lateef in bits and pieces throughout the year, but also what you took away from almost 2 quarters of play against USC. What do you like about his opportunity in this UCLA game, and what are the obvious challenges that you see?
Oh, I'm excited for him. I'm sure he's been sitting there the whole time thinking to himself, it could be one snap. I'm going to have to go in. From what everybody says, he prepares really well. He's right there asking questions in the meetings, does a really good job in practice. Everybody likes him. But I'm really excited about him playing this week because I was looking ahead for the UCLA game, and you see that a lot of the teams they play, even if they don't necessarily have a true running quarterback, they put up big numbers. They've given up over 45 to 5 different quarterbacks. They've given up over 80 to 3 different quarterbacks. And Drew Aller ran for 94 yards against them and a touchdown. So I know the quarterback could have success with his legs. So I'm excited about seeing that. I've also gotten a little, I don't know the word to use that don't sound mean, but I'm tired of seeing Dylan Raiola miss deep balls. And so I want to see somebody else throw them and see how that goes and see if maybe they'll stand in the pocket a little bit longer and make that throw and try to get the ball down the field. So I'm excited for TJ Lateef. I think he's got a great opportunity this week.
Michael, when you think about the other side and Nico Iamaleava, there's been a lot of growth for him in the running game as well. He's the team's leading rusher heading into this contest. Yeah. How can Nebraska defend him and work against him this week?
Well, I'm not a huge fan of Nico. I just don't like a lot of things that he does. I think at times he will just not see the field very well. Other times, when he does see the field, he's not very accurate on most occasions. So overall, I'm not necessarily worried about him in terms of his arm. But he will occasionally get hot. He certainly can, as you mentioned, in Big Ten play. That's all I'm looking for numbers now is Big Ten play because that's the 5 games since they fired their head coach. And during Big Ten play, he has been up and down, but for the most part, other than Indiana, he's played okay. He is leading them in rushing. Not an exciting runner, in my opinion. He's more of a lumberer at times. Isn't overly explosive. Once he gets going with long strides, he's a little bit better. But the concern is always going to be with Nebraska's run defense. If UCLA decides to just run it and stick with it, when they get into the red zone, Nebraska be able to toughen up like they did against USC the first 2 times down there? If they can't, then I would be a little bit worried. But I think they control Iamaleava the majority of the time. The worry I have always is going to be from the running backs breaking a long run like we saw for the first, 7-8 weeks of the season.
The comparisons to dual threat quarterbacks throughout the season that Nebraska has faced, I made a comparison to Nico to maybe Aiden Childs more so than a Jaden Maeva or anybody else in Nebraska's played. And I like, Michael, what this defense has done to at least try to handcuff these quarterbacks to where either they're shutting down that passing element, that they're forcing them to be a little bit more one-dimensional. And even to a pretty large part of that game last week, that's what Nebraska defensively did to Maeva. Is there a comparison that when you watch Nico that Nebraska has played that you would say, okay, it was very similar to this guy?
He's more of a cross between Malik Washington, who wants to stay in the pocket, but can get out of there. By the way, I think Malik had 65 yards rushing against UCLA when he played him. More like Malik Washington, and then I would say the next, like the other end of it would be Maeva, because he is a pretty functional runner, but I think he wants to stay in the pocket. I think he wants to be a pocket passer. Out of the 3 games that I watched the whole thing, watching Penn State live and then rewatching some of that, the first half of Indiana, watching Maryland, I only counted maybe 2 or 3 actual called runs. Most of them were off of scrambles, so it's when he has to. He doesn't really fit any of the guys because I think he's a better runner than Washington, but he is against running. I think he is probably as good a runner as Maeva, but I don't think he threatens you as much with his arm and his accuracy. So he kind of falls between those 2 guys for me.
Michael, as you look at this Nebraska football team, you are the draft guy. I'll ask you again, kind of like we did at the beginning of the year, but now that we have game tape in front of us. Yeah. Who are draft eligible guys? Who are guys on this Nebraska roster that you think in April could end up being draft picks, whether that's any guys that you think of that are day 2 or mostly I would assume maybe day 3, but where are your evaluations at right now?
Well, I had initially at the beginning of the season Sierra Wright being somewhere between a 4th and a 5th rounder, and I think with how well he's played, where he's going to end up on all Big Ten, I could see him being as high as a day 2, a 2nd round guy. I don't know how he'll test. If he tests really well, maybe with the numbers he has, the ability to play both outside and in the slot, he could possibly be a 1st rounder by the way he's playing now. I mean, his numbers are remarkable in terms of targets, catches, overall amount of coverage he's had. So he's played really well. I still believe that Dane Key has a lot of good tape out there. I think he's a draftable player. I think Isaiah Hunter has gone from where I had him as maybe a 6th or 7th rounder to maybe moving up a little bit. Maybe could be as high as a 4th rounder, 3rd rounder, especially if he runs really well in the draft. Those are the main guys. I don't know where Spindler fits. I don't think he is a day 1 or 2. He'd be a day 3 if he would be. I thought maybe Pritchard, if he had a great year, might come out early. Now it looks like most likely he'll be back. I would say Andrew Marshall, not quite sure about his position and where he is in terms of where he would fit if he came out. Those are probably the main guys I can think of in terms of the draft.
Michael, I'm glad you brought up Rocco Spindler because I want to talk a little bit about this offensive line. With what we've seen Nebraska, and Dana Holgorsen even said they're a run-first team now. I talked with Henry Lutovsky. He loves it. He loves that that's that mentality right now. When you see a group do pretty well at that part of this offense, yet pass pro has been a major problem. I know a lot of people just say, well, they're good at one thing. They're just not good at the other thing. I know to you see a little bit more on each side of this thing. When you look at this offensive line, just if you can, break down the dynamic of what they've done well, but also where the biggest challenges have been.
I think it really is more communication thing. When you don't have the same 5 guys and you're trying to make sure the guy next to you has a good understanding of what you're going to do, especially when it comes to if somebody's running a stunt or they're doing something, a late blitz, and you have an idea that, okay, that's the running backs guy, that's the tight ends guy, that's the guy next to me, the guards guy, or I'm a guard, that's the tackles guy. I think that's been really the issue. Obviously, changing out the tackles and having that many injuries is a problem. But, we talked to Jeremiah Searles on Big Red Wrap-Up, and he was talking about how well the interior guys have been playing. And for the most part, Nebraska is an inside run, whether they're running some duo or inside zone. They're running a lot of inside plays. And so those 3 guys have been healthy and actually been pretty good. Lutovsky, as you mentioned, and how well he's played, and certainly Spindler and Evans. And so as long as that is the core, I think they're okay. The one problem that we've all seen is occasionally where one-on-one, whether it be Pritchard last week getting beaten, Gunnar Gattulo for that game against Minnesota when he really struggled, and now we know he was injured, or whoever else is playing right tackle, even Turner Corcoran. Occasionally when they're on the island, they'll get beat with either just a more athletic move or somebody will physically get them back. That I worry about. But I think overall, talking about a UCLA team that doesn't get a lot of pressure, they don't have anybody on the team that has more than 1.5 sacks by themselves. They're not a team that really scares you in terms of pressure. They've given up a lot of run yards, both to quarterbacks and to running backs. So I'm not as concerned about the offensive line as some of the games earlier in the year.
Michael, how do you evaluate this defense for Nebraska at this point in the year? And for me, it's tough because, look, they've been gashed in the run game several times. They have given up big plays several times. And you look at the scoreboard at the end of the game, and they gave up 21 points to a USC team that has been well above that all year long. And so it's like it's looked ugly at points, and statistically it's looked ugly, but then the results, more often than not, they've done enough for Nebraska to be able to win the game. How do you evaluate that group?
I think the defense is doing – so all we can ask for as coaches is to set a game plan based off of what you have, who your personnel is, what your scheme is, who you're going against. And Nebraska did the right thing. Stopping the passing game was important against UCLA. You're talking about a team that was averaging, I think in Big Ten play, like 340 yards passing a game. So you want to stop that. If you're going to have to give up some runs, make them go methodically down the field, they get into the red zone, you either get lucky because the coach stops calling running plays or because you get a penalty or whatever else. It's a lot harder to finish a drive like that when you're not being able to throw the ball. So I kind of like what John Butler's doing. Yeah, they're giving up some in the run because they're sitting back. You can't give up over 30-yard plays. But if you're giving up 10 and 15-yard ones, they suck to watch. I know old school football people are like, you got to stop the run, you got to stop the run. Well, we watch a lot of NFL. You can be successful stopping the pass, give up run, and still go to the Super Bowl and win. We watch the Chiefs do it. So you can do that. I like the strategy they're taking. They're not big enough to line up and just say, we're going to stop the run and then give up some stuff in the pass. So veteran secondary, stop the pass, limit it, be the second best pass defense in the Big Ten and maybe the country, and say, you're going to get some yards on the ground. That's fine. Let's say you go 11 plays. Let's say you go 8 plays and score on us.
Talking with Michael Severe here on the Husker Huddle podcast. Michael, the other part about this game that intrigues me more than anything, and we've seen signs, I would say, for the good, that Nebraska has shown that resiliency you need to after a tough loss. But Nebraska has also had the luxury of being back home after those losses as well. After the Michigan game, they had the bye week, then they're home against Michigan State. After the Minnesota game, they're home against Northwestern. This one is interesting because you lose a game where you had it at the palm of your hand. Even when the injuries happened, this team was driving. It just felt like the ultimate gut punch, and then you lose your starting quarterback for this season, and you're going out to the West Coast. Do you like that this team is going on the road in this occasion, or do you think having a home game would have been the better recipe after a tough loss like that?
Well, you're right. They're getting on a plane, and they're flying someplace else, so they're on the road. Will they be the home team, though? I don't know, because I know that Californians from Nebraska, they run deep. I watched them 25,000 strong playing against USC in 2006, and so I wouldn't be surprised if Nebraska fans outnumber UCLA fans. Same thing happened with Penn State, though there were more Penn State fans in that stadium than there were UCLA fans. I think it'll help Nebraska in a way. I know somebody had a prediction earlier today saying that at some point UCLA's got to go to a silent count because Nebraska fans will be so loud. So it's not going to be an intimidating atmosphere. Right. But yes, the whole process of going on the road sometimes is better to get away. I do think it's great that in a way that this new quarterback who's learning everything is kind of sequestered. He spoke after the game, but he's got classes on Tuesday, so he can't make the press conference. So he's kind of been away from the media. It's just him and Holgerson and the quarterback coach and Dylan until he went away to New York to get his surgery. And so they've been kind of sequestered to get him going. And so maybe it is a good thing for them to go on the road for that reason with the new quarterback.
How cool is this story that's potentially, and we were just talking about this before we started, just how poetic sports can be at times, that this injury just happens to happen right before the backup quarterback goes to play 20 minutes away from his own backyard. I mean, how cool is this, the opportunity, the story that Nebraska can potentially write with a win on the road over UCLA this week for TJ Lateef in particular?
Well, it's a kind of poetry you're talking about. There's some poetry that kind of involves tragedy, right? Which is having a contract extension the same week as playing USC, like they had in 2007. Sometimes the poetry is not great. Sometimes the poetry it calls back to some sad things. But yes, this one definitely is one of the things when you think back to when, and it didn't work out great for Emmett Johnson or Nebraska. But let's go back to the bowl game. When you get to go to a bowl game that's so random, you're going to New York, but you're going to a place that your senior running back is having a chance to go home, Ramir Johnson, or your coach is having a chance to go back home. It's not just TJ Lateef. There's about 3 or 4 players that are kind of going back home that are West Coast guys. And so, yeah, it's cool that it worked this way. It's certainly a cool coincidence. On the other hand, maybe if he went someplace else on the road, he wouldn't have to worry about getting tickets for a lot of people or trying to make sure that he was seeing all his relatives and stuff. So that's another thing that's on top of it. But yeah, I think it's cool. 10, 15 minutes over to Compton from where he is. That I'm sure he dreamed about playing in this game most of his life, or playing in that building most of his life. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Michael, do you think that line's fair? 1.5 for US or UCLA?
It's a really hard line to put together. The numbers tell you that it should be like 6.5, 7 for Nebraska, but then you have to take out, of course, Dylan Raiola, and you figure that out. And then when you look at what UCLA's done over these 5 games since the firing, they've actually kind of dropped off in terms of their EPA. So when I make the number more, take 4 points off for Dylan, I make it about 2.5. I think Nebraska should be favored at that point, but it's just really hard to determine. You're putting a true freshman out there, got limited views of him, limited numbers of his, but you do have UCLA's numbers of being struggling against quarterbacks that run, against the run game. All the penalties that they have 200 more yard penalties than their opponents do. So all that together is still in place. So with all that together still in place, I still would make Nebraska the favorite if it was me.
All right. For folks who watch Big Red Wrap-Up, they would have already seen this, but you could re-solidify, or maybe you've changed your mind in 48 hours. What do you see happening when it comes to Nebraska and UCLA this Saturday night?
No, we're asked to make our picks for Big Red Wrap-Up on Monday. Most times I don't get them to them until Tuesday. But I stick with that all the way through. That's the same pick I have. I picked 23-17 Nebraska. I know a lot of people are picking higher scoring game. I don't know about that. I think we'll see a combination of some big plays we hadn't seen before and maybe some longer drives because of Nebraska converting on 3rd and medium and 3rd and short because of Lateef's legs. Same thing happening with UCLA, getting some of those conversions on 3rd downs, even though they haven't been very good on 3rd down. But I think we'll see some of that. So I think a game that goes a little bit longer drives because of that, a little bit lower scoring. I'm going 23-17. But I think Nebraska, in almost every position, I think they're better. I think almost every category, they're better. They got a young quarterback. They've got to rally around him.
Are you going, by the way?
No, I was really hoping this game was going to be the Friday game.
We're not going to have a post-game walk and talk then?
Well, I was really hoping that this was a Friday game. I can't go to Saturday games. I do a Sunday morning show. So it's really hard to be able to do that. That turnaround's already going to be a little murder. It would really be murder if I was in LA trying to do it. But no, I was thinking about actually walking around the block after the game at 11:30 at night, just walking around the block and talking to myself. But I thought about it. But yeah, that's I wish my cousin Ronald, who just turned 50 years old last week. They had a huge party for him last week. We were hoping it worked out better so we could have gone down for the game and for that as well. But he lives like minutes away from the stadium too, so it would have been perfect for us. But no, I'm not going.
Well, always great to catch the post game too. Severe Reaction. Don't forget to check that out as well on 1620. Does a fantastic job. Been doing that for a very long time. And also, I enjoy the post game thoughts, the immediate raw thoughts right there too. That's why I was asking. But Mike, always appreciate when you can join us. We always feel wiser of the game of football too when our paths cross. So always appreciate you making time for us, my man.
It's the best when the players are leaving and they're walking behind me while I'm talking about them, which happened again this week. I sit in the same garage as the players, so that's always very comfortable.
Yeah, I noticed someone said hi to you when you were in the middle of it this last Saturday. So.
Yeah, there was a nice lady. She was in the hallway and she said hi. But like a couple players right behind us, we try to let them go by me so I can continue to talk about them. But yeah, that's always fun.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, thanks, guys.
Always appreciate Michael Severe joining the show, and chance we get to talk a little ball with Michael Severe. It's you just
Good
always,
for the soul.
You always feel, yeah, there you go. You always feel a little more educated, but yes, I like it. It's good football for the soul right there too. I'm going to get to our mailbags questions here in just a bit. We don't have multiple mailbags, but we have questions in the mailbag this week. But also want to tell you about our friends over at Cross Train Brewing. They've got their 12 jams of Christmas coming up, which means there are beers made out of different jams. That's true, and that's something that they've been doing year in and year out. But you don't have to wait for that to happen in December too. Just go out to Cross Train Brewing, whether it's the Millworks Commons out downtown or in their production facility / tap room in La Vista. New location coming hopefully spring of 2026. Building is up. It's getting worked on right now. So for you folks out in West Omaha like myself, exciting news there. 180th and Maple area.
Very
they'll
cool.
have a new Cross Train Brewing. But I saw some new releases, a new West Coast IPA that they have out there. Always some tremendous offshoots of their very famous Fairy Nectar IPA, which is one of my all-time favorites. Everything you love in the craft beer world, you're going to find it, and not only find it, but you're going to find it at the highest level at Cross Train Brewing.
Fantastic stuff. And if you are ever in the market for craft beer, anything like that here in Omaha, I truly don't know why you would go anywhere else.
Yeah, voted number 1 best of Omaha again for the microbrewery category. And of course, they have what you and I have loved
the
all
Cornhusker
season
Crusher?
long. Yes, the Cornhusker Crusher, which is the official craft beer of the Huskers. That's Cross Train Brewing. All right, let's get to our mailbag this week. PB from the O. He's back. He's back, folks.
Consistent.
Number 1 question he's got: how much does the goalpost move on the outlook of the season as the Raiola injury impacts? That's a good question.
Yeah, it's funny because you think about, you would like to think that TJ Lateef is more qualified than Nebraska quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks of the past, more than Chubba Purdy, I guess technically more than Heinrich Harburg. But we don't know. We don't know how necessarily dynamic he's going to be against a Power 4 opponent with the weight of the full responsibilities of that starting quarterback job on his shoulders. So I'm going to go conservative here and say, I think if Nebraska got one more win in the next 3, you would probably deem the season a success, even if you finish 7-5. Now, I think with that comes being competitive, right? Like, I don't think getting blown out by Iowa makes people feel really good, or blown out by Penn State for that matter, even with a backup quarterback. But, you know, I think you can still feel okay about things and progress if you finish a game below 8 wins this year, given the way that the season took a massive turn 75% of the way through.
Yeah, that's. I feel like every time we talk about success, and in this case, moving the goalpost for what you originally thought with a healthy Dylan Raiola for 12 games as opposed to not, how that could look. But I think you're probably a little bit more on the money there with. You can put wins and losses. I feel like if you were to lose out,
it depends on how it happens too.
Yeah.
That's the other part of it that's pretty important.
And that's where look out. Look at that little mic there. That's where I'm a little more focused on when it comes to how Nebraska approaches each game, because I think they've got enough stability in certain areas where they should at least be able to get one more win, if not more. But in the games that they're in dogfights, and I think all 3 of these games that they have in front of them, they're going to have those moments. How do they handle late game operations from the sideline, from communication with now a young quarterback?
An improvement there. You still have to burn timeouts randomly when you don't want to.
Right. And in an area that's been a massive improvement, can it be that, especially with a change of personnel at quarterback in special teams? Can special teams maybe step up even more so as well? So
it'd be cool too to make a game-winning level special teams play against Iowa, right?
Well, they're due.
Like, that could be another thing. And I know Michael said it earlier this year, but he's pretty confident. He's like, well, the game's going to come down to a field goal, and somebody's going to win by 3, and it's going to be low scoring. It's going to be 13-10, and either Nebraska or Iowa will win at the buzzer.
Next question. Nebraska seemed to struggle against dual threat quarterbacks. And although Nico Imaleva is not, there we go, is not torching defenses on the ground. He's their leading rusher this year. How much of the game plan defensively for the Huskers is going to go into neutralizing him, and how can they effectively do that?
I'm interested to see how, especially, I feel like UCLA, of the 3 games left that Nebraska has, UCLA is probably the most multidimensional offense. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so.
I think Penn State is very, very heavy run, and Iowa traditionally is. So this will be maybe, in terms of having to defend multiple things, very, very well. This might be the biggest test that Nebraska has left. So I don't. You go back, I'm sure, to the film that you had against Brendan Swordsby with Cincinnati. And this defense is just hard to evaluate for me in a lot of ways, because I think they do a lot of the things that you want them to do generally right. And then there are things that really, really bother you, like the amount of 10-plus yard runs that they gave up against USC and the scrambles and all that stuff. And then you look at the scoreboard at the end of the game, and they gave up 21 points, and they forced enough turnovers in key spots to give the offense chances to go win the game or extend it to a 3-score lead. And it's like, all right, well, look, like the numbers aren't super sexy when you look into the box score, but if you look at the scoreboard numbers, more often than not, I think you're generally happy with what they did. They did enough to win. And so I'll be interested to see how they can defend a guy like this who is capable of moving, rolling the pocket, and hurting you with his legs.
Yeah, the EMLA of a comparison to, I would say, maybe more to Aiden Childs. Because
maybe. He's definitely better.
There's experience there, and I like what Nebraska did defensively against Aiden Childs, where they really did limit what he could do with his arm, where they essentially just made him another running back. Now, this is obviously something that Nico is okay with, but John Butler said something earlier this week about what they did to Jaden Maeva, and that was having him going back to the sideline and still trying to figure out the types of looks that Nebraska was throwing. And you saw in his completion percentage, I mean, he struggled to throw the football. There's
a certain amount of rushing yards I'm okay to give up if you shut down the passing game to the extent that they did against USC. And it's apples and oranges in terms of the talent on all levels for USC and UCLA. So it's different, and what they're good at is obviously very different. So comparing the two games, kind of difficult, I think. But if you can do enough to just totally take away half of the opposing offense's production, then I think I'm okay giving up some of the other stuff on the other side.
And remember, USC came back not because all of a sudden Maeva was just starting to torch Nebraska with his arm. You had the one trick play that ended up working.
I mean, he was 9 for 23.
Exactly. And he was still struggling. It is when he was able to use his legs.
It was the lowest USC completion percentage in a game in a very, very long time.
Right.
I wish I remembered the year, but it's been a while.
And that's where Nebraska, if they can just neutralize the entire run game to that point as a whole and limit the passing yardage, if Nico gets loose on a couple, that's okay as long as you're neutralizing that entire rushing attack. I think that you have a good opportunity. And the good news is Nebraska's faced enough of those quarterbacks where I think they've made improvements and for the most part have made them a little bit more one-dimensional. Our last question, this one's from Mike. How much do those in-game reps against Akron and Houston Christian and even last week against USC matter for Lateef for this week? I think it all matters. And I think this is a lot of what we saw. You and I talked about this 8-9 weeks ago, and that was, it's been a while since Nebraska blew a team out to where you could get second and third string reps in a game and really do so early enough in the second half to where those were quality reps. So I like the fact that, don't sleep on the fact that Nebraska against Akron and Houston Christian was able to do that, because you do give those types of reps to an 18-year-old kid. Those are valuable. And so I think that all does matter, because not only for a young man trying to figure out the speed of the college football game, but also you got a coaching staff that's able to use film and say, this is what seems to work. These are the things that we can rep out.
The coaching staff gets familiar with what he looks like in game situations and how he reacts to game situations too. I think, you think back to that USC game, I have a hard time believing, just given the circumstances from which he entered the game, with what was on the line, all that stuff, I don't know if it's going to get harder for him this season than what he just already did. And look, did he lead Nebraska to victory? No, he did not. But he's probably faced the hardest challenge he'll face for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Iowa, you can count that. Yes, Penn State on the road, but it's not the same Penn State team. And I think he can play pretty loose.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants to win, obviously, but the stakes are not super high for him personally over these next 3 games. He gets to play these next 3 games at quarterback and see what he can put on tape.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's already done the hard stuff. And now we just go look ahead to these next 3 games and see how easy things get for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Good questions. Appreciate everyone who joined in on the mailbag. If you want to do so, again, next week we will have our bye week, but hit us up, Husker Huddle at myboomerradio.com. You can do that every week while we've got the Husker Huddle cranking out all of those questions we love to answer. So hit us up.
Well, as we mentioned earlier on in the show, Nick Hanley got a chance to sit down and talk one-on-one once again with Henry Lutovsky, Nebraska left guard. He started every game this year, a really key piece of Nebraska's run game. Get to learn a little bit about his golf game as well. Take a look.
It is Husker All Access, brought to you by Access Bank, here for a reason. Nick Hanley here with offensive lineman Henry Lutovsky, and we'll keep the flies out of this interview this time. But, you guys go into UCLA this weekend. Offensive line's been a little banged up. I know you're a little banged up there in the face too, but, you get to that point of the season, and you've been through this too. Is it just kind of just pushing through it as best you can and understanding the guys are going to be a little dinged up, you just fight through it?
Yeah, no doubt. It just comes down to how hard you prepare during the week to get your body back to, as close to 100% as it can be. Spending extra hours in the recovery room, training room, just anything you need to be feeling as good as you possibly can on Saturday.
Take us back through that game against USC. The environment was pretty incredible. Really a solid game, and then you guys are throwing that curveball, get an injury not only to Dylan but also to Elijah Pritchett. What's just kind of the feeling on the sideline and just the state of mind going forward when those things seem to happen kind of right up on top of each other?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, but at the end of the day, you just got to figure it out. Just find any way possible to, get your job done, just to help the team succeed, help the team win. I think in areas we did that, but in areas, we could improve.
I know, without giving too much away on what you expect from the overall game plan, TJ Lateef, we know, great athlete. Heard Dana Holgerson talk about just a real calming presence too. What did you see just from the quarter and a half on Saturday, but also what you've seen in practice and preparation for his first start?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing that comes to mind when he got in the game was that he's just a competitor. I think he proved that he just loves to compete, loved being out there. Because, he had fun. He was playing hard, doing everything he possibly could to win that game. Watching
a guy like Dylan go down, though, but also being very vocal on the sidelines and understand he won't be with the team this weekend, but hopefully back in the mix, from that second quarterback coaching role. What have you kind of taken from him just handling, obviously, something that wasn't in the plans this season?
Yeah, it really just shows his toughness. Dylan's a warrior. He comes from a family of warriors. He is too. He's going to fight. He's going to get better. He's going to get back to 100%. I have no doubt in mind about that. He's going to keep, chasing his dreams, chasing what he wants to do because he just loves this game. He gives everything he can to it.
Watching you, and especially on the interior right now, too, with the success that Emmett's having and just the ability to run the ball at a consistent clip, too, how much for just you guys, especially with you and Justin, and just kind of looking at that group there and Rocco, how much you guys have really enjoyed just that element of this offense right now?
Yeah, it's fun. We definitely prefer to run the ball. Just get those body blows in, just go after the other team's defense. It's fun.
I want to give you an opportunity for people know a little bit about Henry Lutovsky off the field too. You guys, you've been here a while. You kind of know the lay of the land in Lincoln as well. When it does come to your downtime, when it comes to things that you like to do away from football, what comes to mind? Just first and foremost, where's your priority when it doesn't have to be football for that day?
Now in season, just recovery. I don't really do too much, get out a whole lot, but shoot, out of season. Me and the guys like to go hit the golf courses a little bit, like to fish, just be outside.
What's your handicap?
Not good. I'm new to it. I'm not good.
Are you good off the tee, or are you kind of a whiz on the green though too? I'm assuming you can hit the ball a ton.
I can't.
No, club head speed is high, but it comes down to contact. Can't make contact. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. I love it. That's Henry Lutovsky. It's Huskers All Access, brought to you by Access Bank. Thanks to Henry Lutovsky for joining me earlier this week. He's a man for the people, I tell you. I don't know how much people could see if you were watching the video, but you got the stitches in on the nose there. Yes. That was in practice. He and Cam Lenhart had I think it was Cam Lenhart's little wrapped up club that caught him too. So those boys are pushing each other, that's for sure. But I told him when we were done, you were there, if they ever go out, those offensive linemen go out for a golf round, I'm not saying I want to actually participate, but I want to be like a casual observer.
Yeah.
To see as what we like to call hitting the ball hard. It's the old long and wrong approach, but good stuff there from Henry Lutovsky. All right, got another great college football weekend slate. We will give you our Nebraska UCLA predictions here in just a moment, but some good top 25 matchups, including all of a sudden a really big one, especially if you are an Iowa Hawkeye fan in the Big Ten, coming off of a bye week and welcoming Oregon to Niall Kinnick Stadium. And it's the afternoon, the marquee spot on CBS. Iowa hosting Oregon. Iowa is actually an underdog at home by
6.5.
Nearly a touchdown. Over under in this one, as you'd expect, any game that Iowa is involved in is going to be well under 50. This one is actually at 40.5, and I think a little bit of that has to do with Oregon and not necessarily Iowa. But I will say this about the Iowa Hawkeyes. First of all, completely different animal at home. And they've got a great support system there at Kinnick Stadium. That's always a unique, I think, advantage with college football teams that have home venues. I would say Iowa is definitely one of those teams that gains a pretty solid advantage when they're playing at home. But also Iowa coming off of the bye week. And I say this not necessarily because of Kirk Ferentz coming off the bye week against top 25, top 10 type opponents coming into Kinnick Stadium, but Phil Parker. Because I think that is going to be the matchup in this one, is how Oregon's offense goes up against this Iowa defense, especially giving Phil Parker, what I think is one of the great defensive coordinators in college football, giving him extra time to prepare for a dynamic offense like Oregon.
Well, you forget, Oregon's on bye as well this past week.
That's true. So you're giving Dan Lanning an extra opportunity as well.
That's kind of where I'm at this week. I'm on the Ducks to win this game, to go into Kinnick and get the victory. I don't know if Oregon, I highly doubt Oregon is going to be able to throw it all over the yard against this Iowa defense. I think you're right. They'll be prepared, but Oregon needs this game badly. 21-7 is the last impression this Ducks team left before the bye week, kind of just limping along against Wisconsin at home. Not a great showing. You're going to come out this week against a ranked opponent that is on the rise, on the road, and you got a chance to insert yourself back in that top half of the top 10, that sort of discussion, and make another impression here in November. I think the Ducks take advantage of it. I don't know if they cover by a touchdown. Iowa has a really good way of just kind of dragging people into close games with them, whether they want to be there or not. It's very rare, I feel like, that the Hawkeyes get blown out. I could think of maybe the Ohio State game a couple of years ago. That's kind of it. So I say Oregon wins this one in a tight one. A really good game on CBS. They deserve it. 24-20 Ducks.
I'm actually going to go the other way. I'm going to take Iowa to pull the upset in this one. I thought 6.5 was a lot given the circumstances at Kinnick Stadium, but I also like how Mark Gronowski has kind of leaned into the role he needs to be at quarterback and hurt teams with his legs. And I think with the way that they have that zone running game that Iowa does, they've got capable backs, but I think Gronowski adding that extra element, they're not going to ask him to throw the ball 25 to 30 times. If they're doing that, Iowa is playing from behind.
4 touchdowns, 4 picks this year. Not a lot of production on that
absolutely.
side. Less than 1,000 yards passing.
And I think Iowa's now leaned into what they truly have.
As they do every year.
Yep, and with Mark Gronowski. So I think the offensive line has gotten a lot more solid, and I think their running game as a whole, this is the type of game, we talked about this the last couple of weeks with what Nebraska needed to do against USC, is grind the tempo of the game way down, and I think they always seem to have that opportunity at home and kind of dictate their level of play. And we talked about it a lot with Nebraska trying to improve that third phase. Iowa also very solid when it does come to special teams. It wouldn't shock me if it's a walk-off field goal. But I'm going to take Iowa to win this one in a game that they really squeeze Oregon. They win it 20-17.
Heading now to the Big 12, 11 a.m. kickoff. It is number 8 BYU and number 7 Texas or the other way around. Sorry, number 7 BYU, number 8 Texas Tech. And massive game here in the Big 12. Obviously, you've got implications for the championship game and two teams right now that are neck and neck in the college football playoff race. Bear Bachmeier has been incredible this year for BYU. He's on the road here, big test for the freshman quarterback, and I like the Cougars to win this game. BYU goes on the road. They get the win over Texas Tech. Both these teams have shelled out a lot of dough for their respective rosters, but BYU remains undefeated at 9-0. And let's see, the line is 10.5 for Texas Tech, which is, whoa, hello. That's a lot. I like BYU to go in, pull off the upset. We'll say 20, or this will be high scoring. So we'll go 31-28 BYU.
52.5 is your over-under in this one, and we're going to go head-to-head again because I'm going to take Texas Tech. And you mentioned BYU and their quarterback play. I'm going to give Baron Morton a big-time stage being in Lubbock, Texas for this one where he's able to show out. He's been pretty good with the football as well, good touchdown-interception ratio. Texas Tech, I feel defensively is what concerns me the most, but I think if you're getting into a type of shootout, that's not uncomfortable for them. And I think, again, at home and Baron Morton kind of cooking a little bit there too, I will take Texas Tech to win in a shootout. I don't necessarily think they cover. I think this is a 7-point game, but I think it goes 35-28 in favor of the Red Raiders.
All right, Nebraska and UCLA, 8 o'clock in Pasadena on Saturday night. Fox Sports. Is it FS1 or is it Fox Sports?
It's Fox, yes.
Oh, with Tim Brando, our friend Tim Brando, Devin Gardner back on the call.
That's right. And, this one, the line has been a little interesting in following it. Nebraska opened as a slight favorite. Then it was UCLA. Then the news comes about Dylan Raiola. It opened at, I should say it actually opened UCLA -2.5. It's currently at 1.5 in favor of the Bruins at home. So you're telling me a neutral site, Nebraska, would be a slight favor. At home in Lincoln, Nebraska, would be around
1.5 again.
Yeah, exactly. So you're kind of going back and forth here. 43.5 is the over-under for this game between Nebraska and the Bruins. Quite simply, how does TJ Lateef handle this offense? But what does this staff, mainly Dana Holgorsen and Glenn Thomas, have for TJ Lateef to be effective, to keep that offense, I keep saying it, on the field? Yes, you'll take the big plays, sure, but keeping this offense on the field, they're getting into third down and manageables, where I think that extra element of what TJ Lateef can bring with his legs becomes even that much bigger of a weapon. Defensively, and with what UCLA can do, especially with the dual threat type of quarterback who's played big-time games, and really a UCLA team and offense that has gained a lot of confidence. They had the bye week. There's a lot of challenges for this Nebraska team. To me, it's going to come down to what those guys do up front, mainly this offensive line and what's been beaten up a little bit. Turner Corcoran is going to have a big spot in this one on the tackle spot. You hope Elijah Pritchett stays healthy. All of the different factors in this game. I think TJ Lateef's elements of surprise will be a major factor for Nebraska offensively, and I think the defense is up to the task. I think Nebraska goes out. I was going back and forth all week on this one. There was a time that I thought, I don't like this for Nebraska. I think as we get closer to kickoff, I think what Nebraska can do defensively and what John Butler's defense showed against a more explosive, I think, well-rounded offense against USC than what they're going to face against UCLA. I think they're going to be up for this one. I think they're able to neutralize that rushing attack and what UCLA wants to do with Nico at quarterback. And I think they can shut down the passing game like they have pretty much all season long. I think this one will be at times a very grimy, ugly game, but I'm going to take Nebraska to eke out a victory over the Bruins, in one that's going to look very strange at times. That's why I'm going to take a strange score, like our friend Michael Bruns likes to do too. I'm going to say Nebraska wins this one by a score of 26-19.
Well, you heard Dana Holgorsen say it earlier this week. Nebraska's a run-first team now. It's become that, not only because of the Dylan Raiola injury. I think you throw that out the window. Whether or not he got hurt, this is going to happen. You're over 1,000 yards rushing with Emmett Johnson, First 1,000-yard rusher for Nebraska since 2018 in Divine Ozigbo. Emmett has to be licking his chops at this game and what's in front of him against the 124th ranked rushing defense in the country. UCLA almost gives up 200 yards of rushing offense per game. Some of that may be a little bit skewed by who they played to this point, but at the same time, Nebraska is going to have opportunities on the ground, and that plays into the Cornhuskers' hands. Conversely, offensively for UCLA, when your quarterback in Nico Iamaleava is your leading rusher, that's not good. This is not good for your rushing defense. Also, in the bottom 15 nationally in rushing offense for these UCLA Bruins. So Nebraska is going to have, I think, both sides of the ball a little bit playing into not only its strengths, but against and in favor of Nebraska's weaknesses that exist on the defensive side of the ball. It'll come down to taking care of the football. Can TJ Lateef prevent giving UCLA opportunities and short fields at different points or at critical points in this game if Nebraska has a lead, driving to extend the lead and put the game away, all those sorts of things. Can he take care of the ball? Can Nebraska avoid the back-breaking mistake on the road? I would be on Nebraska to cover here, plus 1.5, and to win outright as well. Huskers get the win on the road. They get their 7th victory of the year for the 3rd straight time this year. They bounce back with a victory after a loss, and I'll say Nebraska wins this one 27-21.
We're close. I just had to go with a weird. This feels like a weird game. That's why I give a weird score.
Yeah, there you go.
We're right there at about a touchdown victory for Nebraska. So we'll see. A team will leave. They get the late kickoff, keeping yourself busy throughout the day on Saturday watching college football before it's time for Nebraska and UCLA to hit the big stage. Of course, 8 o'clock kickoff here Central Time. It'll be a 6 o'clock kickoff local time out in LA. We will have the game for you on Boomer Radio. Don't forget to check that out. Pre-game coverage on 97.3 and 1490 begins at 4 p.m. And then, of course, you can catch it in 100,000 watts on 97.7 HD3. And if you want to catch it on 660 AM, that pregame coverage will begin at 7:30. So a late night Nebraska-UCLA affair. We'll see if Nebraska has taken that one step forward from the regular season that it did a year ago. Still with 2 games remaining. We look forward to talking about that. Big thanks to Michael Severe for joining us. Also appreciate Henry Lutovsky for spending time with me. Your questions in the mailbag. We look forward to doing it all again next week during the bye. For Grant Hansen, I am Nick Handley. You've been checking out the Husker Huddle podcast. Have a great rest of your week.